In human history, civilizations rose and civilizations fell, but hidden beneath their grand temples, shining empires, and heroic legends lies a much darker truth. A truth written not in ink, but in blood. Tonight, we travel back thousands of years to witness the most horrifying, unimaginable, and tragic deaths ever recorded in ancient history. These are not stories for the faint of heart. These are stories of betrayal, torture, sacrifice, curses, and the brutal reality of ancient life. This is the worst deaths in ancient history. Chapter 1. The Death of King Agamemnon, Greece, 1200 BC. Agamemnon, the king who led the Greeks to victory in the Trojan War, a symbol of heroism, strength, and unmatched military power. But his death? It wasn't on the battlefield. It happened in his own home. When Agamemnon returned from Troy after 10 long years, he expected celebration, but instead he walked into a trap. His wife, Clytemnestra, had been waiting not with love, but with rage. Why? Because Agamemnon had sacrificed their daughter Iphigenia to appease the gods before the war. A mother never forgets, and Clytemnestra never forgave. So when Agamemnon stepped into the royal bath, she covered him with a heavy cloth so he couldn't move, and struck him repeatedly with an axe, blow after blow after blow. Some ancient writers say she struck him 3 times. Others say she hacked him until the axe got stuck in bone. His final moments were full of confusion, betrayal, and pain. The mighty king murdered not by an enemy, but by the person closest to him. A terrifying reminder, in ancient history, sometimes your greatest enemy was inside your own home. Chapter 2. The Punishment of Marsyas, Anatolia, 700 BC. One of the most disturbing deaths in mythology. The satyr Marsyas made a mistake that sealed his fate forever. He challenged the god Apollo to a music contest, and Apollo won. The punishment? Not simple execution, but flaying alive. Ancient texts describe Apollo hanging Marsyas upside down and slowly removing his skin while he screamed for mercy. Imagine the burning, tearing pain, each layer of skin peeled back, nerves exposed, blood streaming down. This wasn't just a punishment, it was a message from the gods. Never challenge the divine. The river where Marsyas died was said to turn red every year, a reminder of the terrible suffering endured by one who dared to aim too high. Chapter 3. Scaphism, the most terrifying execution ever in Persia, 400 BC. If there is one death that defines pure horror in ancient history, it is scaphism. Invented by the Persians, this was a slow, grotesque, multi-day torture method. Here's how it happened. 1. The victim was stripped naked. 2. Placed between 2 hollowed-out wooden boats, only their head, arms, and legs sticking out. 3. Forced to drink milk and honey until they vomited. 4. Their entire bodies smeared with more honey, then left in a swamp under the sun. And then nature took over. Flies, worms, bugs, beetles. Thousands of insects crawled inside every open wound, every pore, every soft spot. The victim didn't die in hours, they died in days, sometimes weeks, being eaten alive painfully slowly. Historians describe victims screaming until their vocal cords burst, begging for death, wishing for any quick end. But there was no mercy. This wasn't execution, it was living decomposition, a horrifying reminder of how dark ancient punishments could become. Chapter 4. Spartan Infant Exile, Greece, 600 to 300 BC. Not all of the worst deaths were dramatic. Some were silent, heartbreaking, and done without guilt. In Sparta, newborn babies were inspected by elders. If a child looked weak, small, disabled, or unfit for warrior life, the baby was taken to a place called the apothetai, a cliff outside the city, and left there alone to die from hunger, cold, or animals. No burial, no mourning, nothing. Sparta believed strength was a threat to the state, and so hundreds, possibly thousands of infants died before they even lived. Imagine a society where strength determined survival, even for the innocent. Dark history isn't always loud. Sometimes it is brutally quiet. Chapter 6. The Death of Crassus. Rome, 53 BC. Marcus Licinius Crassus, one of the richest men in ancient history, but money didn't save him. During a failed invasion of Parthia, Crassus was captured, and his enemies wanted to make an example of him. So they poured molten gold down his throat, hot liquid metal burning his mouth, melting tissue, boiling the lungs from the inside out. A perfect punishment for a man whose greed was legendary. As the Parthians mocked him, they shouted, "Drink the gold you loved so much." Crassus's death is a symbol in history. No matter how much wealth can protect you from the consequences of ambition. Chapter 6. The Mummy Curse of Dendera in Egypt. Not every ancient death involves torture or war. Some of the worst deaths involve fear. In Dendera, Egypt, archaeologists uncovered records describing a priest who opened a forbidden tomb during the Ptolemaic era. According to temple inscriptions, the man ignored warnings. He broke the seal, he entered the chamber, and something happened. Within hours, he developed violent fever. Within days, his skin began turning black. Within a week, he died screaming in pain. Was it a curse? Historians believe it may have been toxic ancient mold trapped for centuries, but for the Egyptians, this was divine punishment, a terrifying reminder that in ancient times, fear itself could kill. Chapter 7. The Execution of Saint Catherine, Rome, 4th century. Catherine of Alexandria was sentenced to die on a breaking wheel, a torture device filled with spikes. But when she touched it, the wheel shattered. Enraged, her executioners beheaded her instead. But witnesses claimed something unbelievable. Milk, not blood, flowed from her neck. Whether true or myth, her death inspired centuries of legends, a symbol of faith meeting brutality. Chapter 8. The Skinning of Emperor Valerian. Persia, 260 AD. One of the most humiliating deaths ever suffered by a Roman emperor. Valerian, ruler of the most powerful empire of his time, marched into Persia expecting victory. But instead, he was captured by King Shapur I, who turned him into a living trophy. Ancient writers describe a scene so degrading that it silenced Rome for generations. Valerian was kept in chains like an animal. He was forced to kneel so Shapur could use his back as a human stepping stool whenever he mounted his horse. Every day, Roman soldiers watched their emperor humiliated. But the worst part came later. Valerian begged for mercy. Shapur gave him none. After months of torture, Valerian was flayed alive. His skin was stuffed with straw, mounted upright and displayed in a Persian temple, a permanent symbol of Rome's humiliation. Imagine the final moments, your skin being peeled while you're alive, knowing history will remember you not as a hero, but as a warning. A terrifying testament that in ancient times, even emperors were not safe. Chapter 9. The Weeping Death of Phalaris's Bull, Greece, 560 BC. One of the most infamous torture devices in ancient history, the brazen bull. Created for the tyrant Phalaris of Acragas, this hollow metal statue of a bull had a door on one side. Victims were locked inside and a fire lit underneath. As the metal heated, the victim roasted alive. Their screams echoed through pipes designed to make it sound like the bull was roaring. But here's the darkest twist. Phalaris himself, who ordered countless deaths, was eventually overthrown, and his enemies forced him inside his own brazen bull. As the fire rose and the metal glowed red, Phalaris tasted the same agony he had inflicted on others. The ancient Greeks said that justice had never sounded so terrible or so fair. Chapter 11. Aztec Heart Extraction, Mesoamerica, 1400s. The Aztecs believed the sun demanded a constant supply of human hearts to keep the world alive. During ceremonies at the Templo Mayor, victims were laid on a stone altar and priests used obsidian blades to cut open their chests. The heart, still beating, was lifted into the air. Blood flowed down the temple steps. Drums thundered so loudly that some said it echoed across the valley. Some festivals claimed thousands of victims in a single day. Captured warriors on both sides accepted this fate as part of the cosmic order. But the pain, the fear, the terror, these were the realities of ancient belief. To us, it's disturbing. To them, it was the price of survival. Chapter 12. The terrifying end of Queen Cleopatra, Ancient Egypt, 30 BC. Cleopatra, the last queen of Egypt, a woman of intelligence, beauty, and political genius. But her death remains one of history's greatest mysteries. The most popular version, she allowed a venomous asp or cobra to bite her. But ancient sources disagree. Some say she used poison hidden in a hairpin. Others say she forced her servants to test different toxins on prisoners to find the quickest death. Whatever method she used, her final moments were filled with despair. Her lover, Mark Antony, was dead. Her empire lost. Her children endangered. Rome closing in. Cleopatra refused to be paraded as a trophy, so she chose her own end. Whether by snakebite or secret poison, her death symbolized the final collapse of ancient Egypt and the rise of the Roman world. A queen's tragic exit from history. Chapter 13. The Stone Sarcophagus of the Maya, Mesoamerica. Some Mayan rulers believed death should be embraced with dignity, but their burial rituals could be horrifying. In several Mayan tombs, archaeologists discovered skeletons of young servants locked inside stone coffins alongside their kings. These were not ceremonial skeletons. They were people buried alive. Imagine the absolute darkness, the stone lid sealing shut, no air, no escape. They slowly suffocated, their nail scratches still visible on the inside walls of the sarcophagus. To the Mayans, it was honor. To us, it is cruelty of the highest level. Chapter 14. Execution by Elephant, Ancient India and Persia. In South Asia, elephants were trained for war and for execution. These massive animals could crush a man in seconds, rip limbs apart, throw a body dozens of meters, or drag a victim until bones shattered. Some kings used elephants as symbols of divine justice. In one chilling record, the Mughal Emperor Akbar commanded, "Let the elephant decide his fate." The elephant lifted the prisoner with its trunk, held him in the air, and then smashed him to the ground repeatedly. Not all ancient deaths were slow. Some were swift, brutal, and unforgettable. Chapter 15. The Gladiator Executions, Rome, 100 AD. The Roman Colosseum was not just entertainment, it was a slaughterhouse. Gladiators faced lions, tigers, bears, trained killers, burning chariots, swords, nets, tridents. But the worst part, many gladiators didn't die fighting another warrior. They died in staged executions called damnatio ad bestias, condemnation to the beasts. A criminal would be tied to a post, a starving lion released, and the crowd would cheer. Some victims were burned alive, reenacting mythical scenes. Others were forced to fight blindfolded. Some were given wooden weapons, no chance to defend themselves. Death wasn't just punishment, it was entertainment, a reflection of how numbed ancient societies were to suffering.